Okay. Good morning, world. How are we today? I am trying something new this morning with the video, with the phone in the holder. I'm going to try and have it sideways and see if maybe that stops it from falling forward, falling around, being annoying. How are we? It is January. It's the start of the year. It is the 12th of January, 2026. And yeah, I've only made one other video this year that I've uploaded because, holidays and things and being busy with the family. And yeah, it's been hard to find any time in the car going for drives by myself. Anyway, this morning we do. And what are we talking about? I did a quick little look-see at my previous video as well, just before, to recap, because I thought to myself, is what I was thinking about, like talking about, is that similar to what I talked about last time? Like, is it the same thing? And I guess it is pretty similar. I hope that's not annoying, but yeah, so look, I don't know if I'm just on a vibe at the moment, being at the end of my pregnancy, and maybe I'm sensitive to things, and maybe I'm tired and maybe I'm lacking like patience for things in the world, I guess. But my previous video that I did, talked about how there's just a never-ending barrage of negative stories, in the news, in the news feeds, all over social media, all over TV, etc., that sort of makes things all depressing and negative energy, and distracts you from your connection to nature, your connection to God, anything spiritual, bigger than yourself. It keeps you very much in the mud, in the just in the negative pits, and this morning, when I'm thinking about what I would talk about on the video, I've looked a little bit at the news and on my phone, and heard a bit of news on the radio, and I do want to acknowledge that yes, there has been a tropical cyclone in Queensland, and flooding and things like that cause a lot of havoc, and I believe lots of livestock dying. I did even see stories about like farmers talking about how the cows were so scared of the muddy water that wasn't actually too deep for them. Like, they could actually walk through it, but they were scared of the water. They wouldn't even, and it's fresh rainwater, they wouldn't drink it, and they wouldn't walk through it to go eat grass where there was grass nearby, because they were just scared of the water. And so they would starve themselves to death. And just, yeah, anyway, so that's all happening, you know, up in Queensland. And then you've got Victoria for the last, you know, week has been on fire in many places. And of course that's extremely, you know, dangerous. It's scary. It displaces people. You know, people have lost a lot of property, a lot of you know, their homes, you know, communities, really devastated, you know, and I'm just like, you know, that's just Australia, and that's just on top of Australia's other ongoing problems, you know, cost of living crisis, housing crisis, I want to say political crisis, because I feel like no one really has any faith in any of the politicians in this country anymore. You know, and pretty rightly so, really. You know, there's just all this crap, you know. And then you've got, you know, discrimination and anti-Semitism, and you've got, you know, Muslims being abused and driven off the road, you know, just bloody chaos, and that's just this country, that's just this place, you know. And I'll say as well, you know, even with the bushfires in pretty much all of Victoria, you know, except for like where I live, we were good, you know. Closest fires that we had were like an hour away. The most we had to deal with was a lot of smoke in the air, and, you know, the heat. Just watching the news and, you know, like staying updated with the emergency app and all that. But yeah, you know, just bloody chaos everywhere, and even things that, you know, like with the bushfires, that, you know, apparently the funding and things like that for emergency services has like been lacking for years, and that the emergency services have been jumping up and down about it for years, talking about how they haven't got enough funding. You know, they've got outdated equipment for responding to bushfires and things like that, which, you know, everybody knows we live in the dry country. Like, you know, even though we're close to Antarctica, we are a very bushfire prone country, you know. And they brought in legislation and stuff that even was like stopping people from getting dead wood from forests and stuff like that, you know, for firewood, saying that, you know, oh no, that's animals' habitats, and oh, you're gonna go in there and you're gonna wreck the environment and all this. But then, you know, all that stuff just lays around there, drying out in summer, and then you've got bushfires tearing through everywhere, you know. Like, even the indigenous people, you know, talk about how important it is to do like controlled burning, you know, like prior to you know, the peak of summer and everything like that, because like to prepare so that the whole country isn't just a big ball of freaking fuel for a fire, you know. Obviously makes sense, doesn't it? You know, it's not bloody genius stuff. And anyway, you know, I'm just thinking about all this stuff, and, you know, it's like, okay, now the government has come out and said, oh, you know, yeah, we're gonna you know, distribute or, you know, send over, you know, 19 million or whatever it was, in like a relief package, you know, like government aid to help all the communities that have been affected by the fire and all that. And it's like, yeah, you probably wouldn't have to have done that if you had just invested money in the emergency services, what they were asking for the past several years anyway. And, you know, they can say all they want about, like, oh, this year being the worst, you know, like, fire season again since, like, the last big one that we had, you know, Black Saturday bushfires that killed a lot of people and destroyed a lot. And but it's like, you know, bad bushfires and all that, and the risk of it, that's like, for here, that's a huge risk and a huge reality every year. It doesn't matter if the degrees of heat was like slightly lower. Doesn't matter if there was, you know, a few less houses destroyed. Pretty much every year it's the same bloody problem, you know. And like, it's just like too little too late. And it makes me mad, as it has, you know, I've seen online a lot of other Australians, you know, just really upset at the government for their inaction prior to now, which could have saved, you know, it could have saved a lot of damage being done. You know, it could save lives, it could save livelihoods. You know, a lot of people in this country, especially in Victoria, their livelihood is farming, their livelihood is their properties, it's vineyards, it's all sorts of stuff like that, you know. And fire ravaging through destroys that for people. And no, not everyone has insurance that covers everything. And I can tell you now as well, even insurance companies, they've got their own little monopoly game going, you know, where they will try anything and everything that they can to get out of paying people insurance claims and things like that. You know, and I mean, I don't even understand, why is it that something that is considered an act of God, you don't get paid out for? Why is that? And like, who makes that decision? Okay, like flooding or lightning or something like that, you know, I don't know what fire is, but, you know, if it's considered an act of God, you don't get paid out. Like, what is that? Anyway, and so I'm just like thinking about all this stuff, and it just makes me like mad, right? Obviously, it makes me mad. And then I'm thinking about, there's so much going on that makes me mad. You know, there's just every second of life these days, all you hear about is like this terrible thing happening and that terrible thing happening, and this country's leader doing this and this country's leader doing that. I mean, you know, like, there's like genocide, you know, through like what's called a war or whatever, going on right now. You know, there are people being denied food and water and aid around the world. You know, there are governments who are, you know, sitting around eating marbled steak, while their people in the country are living in bloody tent cities. You know, like, it's so disgusting when you think about, when you like really, like, if you were to sit down with a pen and paper and write down all the terrible things going on in the world, you know, and kind of who's responsible for them, you know, which is mostly the richest people of the world, the most elite, you know, the people with the most power, people sitting in mansions, you know. I mean, it's disgusting, isn't it? And if you to write like a positive and negative about what's going on in the world, obviously the negative is going to be really outweighing the positive, isn't it? You know, even like conservationists and stuff like that are like infiltrated by, you know, bad legislation, you know, bad politicians who want to get their grubby fingers in everything and control everything. And, you know, nowadays you can't even have like people doing charity without, you know, you've got to go through all of this sort of circus work, basically, you know, jumping through hurdles and, you know, applying for permits, doing this, doing that, you know, just to like hand out some free sausages at your local park. to homeless people. You know, you can't, you know, like, it's just, life is made so difficult by these people, to do even good things, you know, to be a good person even, you know. And then you've got crime just rising and rising, and homelessness, and drug addiction and alcohol addiction, and you know, family separations, and you know, violence and abuse, and you know, just people being locked up all the time, and you know, all this sort of stuff. Like, no wonder why. Look what kind of a toxic, negative, gross world we're living in, you know? And I don't know why I'm like so caught up on all this. Maybe like, it's like, you know, I'm having another child, and I just think about like the world that my children are growing up in, you know? Like, what is their future? You know, already with my oldest, you know, she's going to be out of high school soon, and has to, you know, make decisions about her future. And, you know, like, we're not all sitting really rich in life, are we, that we can just pay, you know, $70,000 for each child to go through university and whatever. No, that mostly, for most people in this country, that burden, you know, kind of falls on the kid themselves, where they've got to like sign away their name to a debt that they are going to have to pay off, you know, bit by bit in the future for years, in order to get further education at university, in order to secure themselves a good career, a good job. You know, otherwise you're like, you know, having to have some other job that's, you know, not going to be seen as good, or not going to pay as good, you know. And your whole life depends on what job you have, doesn't it, really? Because in this day and age, in the society that we live in, it all comes down to how much money you have coming in, which shapes, you know, your life, what you're able to do or what you can't do, what you're able to provide for yourself or your family, you know, like, and that burden, that financial burden and stress, and decision making all falls on kids' shoulders as soon as they're out of high school. You know, the last year of high school is all about that. You know, what are you going to do? What are you going to do, kid? You know, I mean, it's like, when you look at it grand scale, but like you look at individual things happening, you know, just from like the stupid, like, schoolyard crap that's going on between different leaders of the world, and their little monopoly games with each other, their little chess games with each other, you know, and you know, what they're doing to their people in their countries, and just everything else, everything. You know, no wonder you've got half the world walking around with mental health issues. You know, like, no wonder you have, you know, rising crime levels and things like that, and people in, like, people going to prison and stuff, like, left, right, and center. You know what I mean? Like, it's just like, of course. You know, like, the world is just crap everywhere you look. And, you know, obviously, like, I even started this channel talking about adversity and resilience. And I have really tried to be like I've tried to really focus on that in my life, and for my family, you know, for my kids and things, in the past like few years. I've really wanted to have a like mindset and everything of like, it doesn't matter, you know, what life throws at you, or what you know, people who just really are jerks, you know, a-holes, try to do to you, or try to say about you, or try to put you through. You know, as long as you are resilient, as long as you control your reaction, as long as you, you know, focus, like stay focused on gratitude and on your blessings, and being resilient, then, you know, everything will be okay. Like, that's the way to go about it, right? I've really tried to have that at the forefront of my mind and everything. But yeah, you know, maybe it's got to do with the pregnancy and having another baby coming along and everything, and I just I'm angry at the world being the way that it is. For myself and my family right now, but also for like my children's future. You know, for all their futures, for their families, for their lives, what they're going to have to go through, what they're going to have to put up with, you know. And when you can kind of look back over time, over history and things, like just throughout your own life, you know, or further even, you know, and, you know, you can see this sort of pattern of behavior of the people who are, you know, in charge, who are running this show. You know, it's just, it's so ridiculous and it's so unnecessary. You know what I mean? Like, that's probably what is the most upsetting or angering, is that all of this crap seems to be so unnecessary. You know, like, any person with half a brain cell would know that emergency services need all the funding they can get to save lives, to save communities, to, you know, save livelihoods, to help protect a country. Like, they are the people on the front line of a, you know, situation that's an everyday situation. Like, okay, so we chuck, you know, millions of dollars towards even other countries, other people's wars, you know, for their front line. But we're not chucking the same amount towards our own emergency services. Like, it's just, that's retarded. That's so stupid, you know? And it's not until a huge disaster and everyone points that out and everyone is upset about it, that then they, you know, announce a relief package for those people. Well, again, too little too late, you know. And now it's come out, obviously there's been one person that's been found dead from that, but, and I know that doesn't sound like lots, you know, in comparison to other terrible, you know, events, or, you know, even just in relation to the population of Victoria. But I'm just saying, you know, one life lost is already too many, isn't it, that could have been prevented. And, you know, yeah, when you're thinking about just other stuff, like, do leaders around the world really have to like instigate wars with each other because of their greed for like oil, like fuel, and, you know, like, just greedy business decisions? Like, is it really necessary? Is it? You know, like, think about how many lives are lost in the process. Think about how much money is wasted in the process. Think about the cataclysmic damage that's done to nations, you know, during the process of those things. You know, I mean, all of that even seems like just, you know, it's like against human rights, right? And you can have the World Court, you can have the United Nations, you know, say that, you know, based on this information and this evidence and you know, that qualifies as, you know, against you know, human rights, and it's genocide and you know, basically playing the game unfairly, you know, in simple terms. And yet, what is done about it? Nothing. Nothing. Who's swooping in and scooping up these leaders who are doing this to the populations that live in these areas, in these places, in these countries? No one. No one's scooping them up. No one's taking these leaders off and locking them up in jail for their crimes. These leaders can just turn around and say, oh, propaganda, propaganda, fake news, you know, oh, they're just making stuff up as a political campaign. Oh, deflect, deflect. Oh, did you know that they've been doing this? Yeah, you know, like it's so frustrating because it's like there's no accountability. And of course, the richest people and most powerful people in the world also have the best, you know, legal teams that can get them out of trouble as well. And it's just, of course, people are running around in this world chaotic themselves and with mental health issues themselves, and, you know, substance issues and, you know, anger and all the rest of it, because this world is bloody chaotic. It's a mess. And it's so funny as I'm saying that right now. Here I am thinking, oh, this world is so gross and just disgusting. Now this little butterfly has just landed on my on my car mirror, and that's just really sweet. Like that was, it's like a little sign or something, you know. It's a sign for me to calm down and that there is still beauty in this world. There is beauty. I know there's beauty. I know there's a lot to be grateful for. I know there is, I know a lot we all have to recognize as blessings, you know, and I really do, look, I really do believe that you have to be resilient against all of the chaos, all of the drama, all of the negativity, all of the adversity that is thrown your way, you know, on a personal level, on a community or regional level, on a global level. You know, resilience, yes. Empathy towards other people, yes. Helping each other out, yes. You know, and it does sort of seem, you know, like community and helping each other out is more reliable than, you know, help from governments and things like that too. Because even when they do relief packages and stuff like that, you know, that stuff gets like tied up in, you know, their own processes of how they distribute that money, and, you know, what it gets spent on, and you know. Yeah, so, you know, like helping each other out, you know, is obviously amazing. And yeah, look, I know maybe I'm just grumpy. And it is frustrating, you know, because, you know, sometimes it's hard to not be affected by just the bombardment of so much negativity. You know what I mean? Like, of course, if like all you ever hear about is negative news, of course it brings you down, doesn't it? Like, it affects your mood. It like reels you in like a fish on a rod. You know what I mean? And unless it's like got something to do with like your family or like, you know, a close loved one, you know, experiencing something that's great news or whatever, like, where else are you really like hearing positive news and things? And like, even this channel, what I've done now, like, you know, I didn't want this channel to be like just bitching about all the problems of the world, or, you know, what I read in the news just being like, oh my god, another negative thing. Oh my god, another like thing to bitch about. Oh, another thing to be upset or angry about. I didn't want this channel to be like that either, you know? Like, there should be an abundance of topics, you know, that I can talk about, that are happy, that are positive, that are light, you know, that leave people feeling good and positive for the day. You know, I would love that. But it just seems like there's just nothing but negativity, you know, going on. And, you know, people being selfish and injustice and things like that, you know? And I'm not going to not talk about stuff because it's negative. Like, I'm not going to not bring light to a topic or not have my opinion on something because it's negative, you know? But it would be great if there was a lot more positive things going on, you know? And yeah, we all need to hear more positive news, I think, and be lifted, you know? I mean, it would be great if like the overall energy in the world was that of positivity rather than the overall, you know, energy of the world being so negative and dark. But, you know, how do we change that? I mean, by all being resilient, by all trying our hardest to be positive, through the, you know, hellfire. Be positive through the hellfire. You know? Is that today's message? That's how we achieve peace on earth again. You know? I don't know. Anyway, I gotta go. Probably yabbered on for too long. Look, I'm going to try to find positive things to talk about for the next video. I'm going to do some research and find some positive things to talk about. Yeah, look, I will see you all soon in the next video. You all take care of yourselves, take care of each other, focus on your blessings, be grateful. Look, hopefully we all come up with, you know, things that we can focus on that are positive. And I will see you all in the next video.